Hello, I'm Ravi, and in this video, I'm going to use mock.feedback, which is a Cactro web app, to conduct a short interview with the AI. This is for will be for the JavaScript fundamentals. Um, let's check how it works. Okay, so let's start.
Hello, I'm Davey, a senior jo- Hi, I'm senior JavaScript developer. How's your day going so far? Or could you tell me a bit about your JavaScript experience or what you're currently working on? Then we'll jump into the interview.
From the morning, I was busy switching from Bootstrap to Tailwind CSS. So there is a project I am building named Cavios Pix. It's somewhat similar to Google Photos, and uh, I have implemented Google OAuth, and this web app is built using Monstack technologies. So that's all.
Great, thanks for sharing. Let's move on to the JavaScript portion of the interview. Here's the first question. What is the difference between let, var, and const?
So let and const are block scoped, versus var is function scoped. And one important difference is uh, uh, the variables declared using let and var can be redeclared, but that of variables declared using const, we cannot redeclare them, and we must initialize the value while declaring with const. But we could just declare the variables using let and var, but we could skip the initialization part and we could later initialize it.
Thank you for explaining. Now, can you tell me what hoisting means in this context?
So hoisting means when the declaration part of functions or the variables is moved to the top of the page, but its value is not defined, so it will be undefined.
Understood. Can you elaborate on how hoisting specifically affects let and const compared to var?
For hoisting, var is what happens with var is the variables declared using var are moved to the top. So suppose I declare a variable, say var a equals to 5. So the variable will be hoisted at the top, and it will be var a colon, and its value will be undefined. Whereas with let, its value is uh, somewhat affected with the temporal dead zone.
I see. Could you explain what the temporal dead zone is and how it relates to let?
So a temporal dead zone inside which the values of let and const are not accessible.
Thank you for your explanation. Let's move on to the next question. What is debouncing and why is it used?
Um, Debouncing is a technique that is used to prevent a lot of API calls. So using this technique, we could just limit the number of API calls um, that we want a user to have.
Can you describe a typical use case where debouncing would be beneficial?
Um, Suppose there is a search functionality in a web app, and we don't want the API calls to be hit after each keystroke. So we could place a timer, or we could just uh, make it like having a few sentences after the user has stopped typing. So that will be a better use case where we could prevent a lot of API calls, because each having API call on each keystroke would lead to a lot of API calls.
Thank you. That makes sense. Let's move on to the next question. Could you explain what closures are in JavaScript?
Um, so closures in JavaScript refers to when let's we if we want the a variable to have to be accessible inside another function. Suppose uh, we declared a variable outside a function, but we also want it to be accessible inside a function.
Could you clarify how closures allow that inner function to still access variables from the outer function?
Okay, so closures, which will be, so they are still inside a same block. That's why it can access a function variable declaration outside the function.
Understood. Why are closures particularly useful in callbacks or asynchronous code?
So they allow um, uh, vari- uh, variables to be accessible outside a function. Um, so um, uh,
Thank, Thank you for your responses. That concludes the technical portion of the interview. I'll end the session.
this was my interview with this mock.feedback AI, and its topic was let a difference between let, var, and const. Then it asked about debouncing. Then it asked about closures. Let's see how I have performed. So for mock interview question, first difference between let, var, and const. I have got an rating of 8 by 10. So strength is you provided a clear distinction between let, var, and const. Okay, especially highlighting the differences in scope. Your explanation about hoisting demonstrated a solid understanding of concept, particularly the behavior of a var in terms of being hoisted and undefined at the top. So, and what is the area for improvement? While you touched on important points, consider elaborating more on mutability and how each keyword can affect code behavior in various scenarios. An example of when to choose one over the other would also strengthen your answer. For instance, you could mention that const is ideal for defining constant and that let should generally be preferred over var for block scoping in modern JavaScript. And for debouncing and why it is used, I have gotten a rating of 7 out of 10. Talking about my strengths, it says I was you accurately described what debouncing is and provided a relevant use case involving such functionality which demonstrates practical understanding. Your explanation clearly communicates the goal of debouncing to reduce the number of API calls. Okay, what are the area of improvements? It is saying it would be beneficial to compare debouncing with throttling. Okay, as you were asked to explain difference. Additionally, a quick overview of how a debounce function works in coding terms like setting a timer and cancelling previous timers could provide more depth to your answer. Explanation of closures in JavaScript. So I was a bit confused about this. Still, I have got the rating of 7 by 10. Strengths, you effectively explained the concept of closures, referencing lexical scope and how inner functions can access outer variables. This indicates a good grasp of fundamental mechanics of closures. Okay. Area for improvements. Your answer could benefit from a concrete example to illustrate your point. For instance, you could demonstrate how closures help in creating private variables. Additionally, discussing why closures are essential in asynchronous programming or callbacks would show a deeper understanding of their practical applications. Overall performance summary. Overall, you demonstrated a strong foundational knowledge of JavaScript concepts, particularly in scope, debouncing, and closures. Your explanations were clear and you communicated your thoughts effectively. As you continue to develop your skills, I encourage you to delve deeper into practical examples and comparisons that showcase your understanding. This will not only enhance your knowledge but also prepare you for real world applications. Keep up the good work. Remember, with continued practice and exploration, you are on your way to become an even more proficient JavaScript developer. Okay, okay, so let's continue. So I did the JavaScript fundamentals parts. Next, there are a few more things. So what I can do is I can just note down the topics that are being asked and prepare them from a YouTube video or blog post, and then I could just give the interview again. So that is what I will do. So thanks for listening.